Make Your Bed, Little Things That Can Change Your Life, and Maybe the World, by Admiral William H. McRaven. Introduction. Picture this. You're standing on a cold beach in California before the sun has even thought about rising. The air is damp, the wind is biting, and you're shivering in a soaking wet uniform. An instructor, a man whose face looks like it was carved from stone, points at you. You've done something wrong. Maybe your uniform wasn't pressed perfectly, or maybe he just didn't like the way you were standing. The reason doesn't matter. Your punishment? You have to run headfirst into the freezing Pacific Ocean. Then, you have to come out and roll around in the sand until you are covered, head to toe, in a gritty, wet, miserable crust. They call it a sugar cookie, and you have to spend the rest of your long, grueling day like that, with sand in your ears, down your neck, between your fingers, a constant, irritating reminder of your so-called failure. Now, what would you do in that moment? Would you get angry? Would you complain that it's not fair? Would you think about giving up? Most people would. But the man who tells this story, Admiral William H. McRaven, learned something profound on that beach. He learned that sometimes, life is just not fair. Sometimes, you can do everything right and still end up as a sugar cookie. And what you do in that moment, whether you complain and crumble, or whether you stand up, shake it off, and drive on, that is what defines you. Welcome to a masterclass in living, drawn from the harshest training ground on Earth, the United States Navy SEALs. The book we're exploring today, Make Your Bed, is a global phenomenon. It's a tiny book with a colossal impact, born from a commencement speech that went viral and touched the hearts of millions. Its author, Admiral McRaven, is one of the most respected military leaders of our time, a man who commanded at every level, from the mudflats of SEAL training to overseeing the entire U.S. Special Operations Forces. He's seen humanity at its absolute best and its very worst. And in this small book, he distills 37 years of hard-won wisdom into 10 simple, powerful principles. These aren't abstract theories. They are lessons forged in cold water, learned through failure, and proven in the heat of battle. My promise to you today is that by the end of our time together, you will understand how something as simple as making your bed can give you the strength to face down bullies, overcome failure, and even give hope to others in their darkest moments. You'll see that you don't need to be a Navy SEAL to build a life of honor, courage, and discipline. You just need to learn the little things that can change your life. And maybe, just maybe, the world. Book summary. It all begins with a task so simple, it seems almost trivial. Every single morning in basic SEAL training, before the sun came up, the instructors would storm into the barracks. And the very first thing they inspected wasn't your muscles or your attitude. It was your bed. The corners had to be perfectly square. The sheets pulled so tight that a quarter flipped onto the blanket would bounce. The pillow had to be centered just so under the headboard. It was the first task of the day, and it was non-negotiable. Now, you might be thinking, what does making a bed have to do with being an elite warrior? And the trainees thought the same thing. But Admiral McRaven came to realize the profound wisdom in this simple act. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride. And it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. That one small act creates a ripple effect. It reinforces a fundamental truth: the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And more than that, if you have a miserable day, and in SEAL training, every day is designed to be miserable, you'll come home to a bed that is made. A bed that you made. And that made bed gives you a little bit of encouragement that tomorrow can be better. It's a small island of order in a sea of chaos. It's a reminder that you have control over something, even when everything else feels out of control. This idea became a constant for McRaven throughout his life. Whether he was a young ensign on a submarine, recovering from a devastating parachute accident in a hospital bed, or even sleeping on an army cot in a war zone in Iraq, he always made his bed. It was the one constant he could count on. It was his way of starting the day with a completed task, a small victory that set the tone for everything else. He even noticed, with some amusement, that when U.S. forces captured Saddam Hussein, the former dictator never made his bed. The covers were always crumpled at the foot of his cot. It was a small detail, but it spoke volumes. The discipline wasn't there. So, the first lesson is simple. If you want to change the world, start by making your bed. But here's the thing about changing the world, or even just navigating your own life. You can't do it alone. In SEAL training, every student is assigned to a 7-man boat crew. Their constant companion is a 10-foot-long black rubber raft. They have to carry it everywhere, over their heads when they run to the chow hall, through the sand dunes, and most importantly, through the crashing surf of the Pacific Ocean. To get that boat through the massive, pounding waves, every single person must paddle in perfect unison. Everyone must exert equal effort. If even one person slacks off, the boat gets turned sideways and thrown back onto the beach. You need everyone pulling together to reach your destination. But the lesson went deeper than that. Inevitably, someone in the crew would get sick or injured. On those days, the other members picked up the slack. They paddled harder. They dug deeper. They shared their food rations. They carried the weight for their struggling teammate. And they did it knowing that one day, they would be the one who needed help. The boat taught them that no one gets through training alone. This lesson hit home for McRaven in the most terrifying way imaginable, 25 years into his career. He was a Navy captain, out on a routine parachute jump. From 12,000 feet, the world was beautiful and calm. But as he fell, another jumper's parachute opened directly beneath him. He slammed into the canopy at 120 miles an hour. The impact sent him spinning out of control. When he finally pulled his own ripcord, the parachute malfunctioned, wrapping around his legs. As the canopy finally caught air, the risers, the strong nylon straps, violently ripped his legs apart, separating his pelvis. The pain was unimaginable. He screamed so loud he thought they could hear him in Mexico. The accident should have been the end of his career. Lying in a hospital bed for months, he felt invincible no more. All he felt was self-pity. But he wasn't alone. His wife, Georgianne, became his nurse and his rock. She refused to let him feel sorry for himself, reminding him that he had never quit anything in his life, and he wasn't about to start now. His friends and colleagues rallied around him. His boss, an admiral, found a way to bend the rules to save his career. He realized then, more deeply than ever, that anything he had ever achieved was because others had helped him. We are all fragile. At some point, life will break you. And in those moments, you can't paddle the boat alone. You need people. You need to find someone to help you paddle. And when you're choosing who to have in your boat, the SEALs have a surprising lesson for you. Don't look at their size. Look at the size of their heart. McRaven's class had one boat crew that everyone made fun of. They were called the Munchkin Crew. Not a single one of them was over 5'5". They had tiny little flippers that the bigger guys would laugh at. This crew was made up of guys from every corner of the nation: an American Indian, an African American, a Polish American, a Greek American, an Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. But this little crew, this diverse band of so-called underdogs, consistently out-paddled, outran, and outswam everyone else. They always had the last laugh, finishing long before the big, brawny guys. SEAL training is the great equalizer. It doesn't care how big you are, what color your skin is, where you came from, or how much money your family has. All that matters is your will to succeed. All that matters is the size of your heart. McRaven learned this lesson powerfully when he was just a young midshipman visiting the SEAL training facility for the first time. He saw a civilian in the hallway, a man who was slightly built, almost frail, with a mop of dark hair. McRaven looked at the photos on the wall of these hardened warriors in Vietnam and felt a pang of pity for this guy. He thought, this man doesn't have a chance. He's not tough enough. He's not big enough. A few minutes later, the officer he was meeting called the thin man into his office. "Bill," the officer said, "this is Tommy Norris." He then added, Tommy was the last SEAL Medal of Honor recipient from Vietnam. McRaven was mortified. This frail man he had just written off was a legend. He was the man who went deep behind enemy lines on successive nights to rescue 2 downed airmen. He was the man who was shot in the face, left for dead, and battled back from his injuries to join the FBI's elite hostage rescue team. He was one of the toughest men to ever wear the SEAL trident. And years earlier, the instructors had almost kicked him out of training because they thought he was too small and not strong enough. It's a lesson for all of us. Measure a person by the size of their heart, not the size of their flippers. Now, even with a big heart and a great team, life is going to throw challenges at you that seem designed to break you. Some of these challenges will come from failure. And others? Well, others will come from sheer, random unfairness. This brings us back to the sugar cookie. The uniform inspection was a daily ritual of inevitable failure. No matter how perfectly you starched your hat or polished your belt buckle, the instructors would always find something wrong. And the punishment was always the same: a trip into the surf, followed by a roll in the sand. Many students couldn't handle this. They couldn't accept that all their hard work and effort was completely unappreciated, that the outcome was arbitrary. They didn't understand the point of the drill. You were never going to have a perfect uniform. The drill was teaching them that sometimes, no matter how hard you try, no matter how good you are, you still end up as a sugar cookie. It's just the way life is sometimes. The instructor who taught McRaven this lesson most clearly was a man named Moki Martin. After ordering him to become a sugar cookie one morning, Martin asked him, "Mr. Mac, do you have any idea why you were a sugar cookie this morning?" "No, Instructor Martin," McRaven replied. "Because, Mr. Mac, life isn't fair. And the sooner you learn that, the better off you will be." Years later, Moki Martin, now a phenomenal athlete and triathlete, was on a training ride on his bicycle when he collided head-on with another cyclist. The accident left him paralyzed from the waist down. For 35 years, he has been in a wheelchair. And in all those years, McRaven says he never once heard him complain. Never once heard him ask, "Why me?" He didn't blame his misfortune. He stood tall, looked to the future, and drove on. He became an accomplished painter, a father, and he founded a triathlon for others. The lesson is clear. Don't complain. Don't blame your misfortune on fate. Get over being a sugar cookie and keep moving forward. While unfairness tests your resolve, failure tests your strength. In SEAL training, failure has a name: the circus. Every day involved a series of grueling physical events, long runs, long swims, obstacle courses, and every event had a standard. If you failed to meet the standard, your name went on a list. At the end of the day, everyone on that list was invited to the circus. The circus was 2 hours of extra calisthenics, designed to wear you down and break your spirit. It was a nightmare. No one wanted to go to the circus. Worse, it created a death spiral. The extra workout left you so exhausted that you were more likely to fail again the next day, earning you another ticket to the circus, and another, and another. Many students quit because of it. Early in training, McRaven and his swim buddy, Mark Thomas, were terrible swimmers. They consistently finished last, and their names were permanent fixtures on the circus list. Every afternoon, they were punished with hundreds of flutter kicks, push-ups, and sit-ups. Failure had a price. But then, a funny thing happened. As the circuses continued, day after day, week after week, all that extra work started to pay off. The punishment was actually making them stronger. Their core strengthened. Their swims got faster. They started moving up in the pack. The final test of training was a brutal 5-mile ocean swim. Numb, exhausted, and on the verge of hypothermia, McRaven and Thomas crawled onto the beach. An instructor was waiting. "Drop down," he yelled. They braced for another round of punishment. "Once again, you two officers have embarrassed your class," the instructor said. But as they got to their feet, they looked around and realized something. The beach was empty. They were the first ones to finish. The instructor smiled. "It looks like all that extra pain and suffering paid off. Life is filled with circuses. You will fail. You will fail often. It will be painful and discouraging. But if you persevere, if you let those failures teach you and strengthen you, you will be prepared for life's toughest moments. So, don't be afraid of the circus." Sometimes, avoiding failure isn't about strength, but about daring. It's about taking calculated risks. The SEAL obstacle course had one obstacle that terrified everyone: the slide for life. It was a 100-foot rope strung between a 30-foot tower and a 10-foot tower. The standard technique was to hang underneath the rope and inch your way across, possum style. It was slow, but it was safe. The other way, called commando style, was to mount the top of the rope and slide down head first. It was incredibly fast, but it was also incredibly risky. One slip, and you'd fall, get injured, and be dropped from training. For weeks, McRaven played it safe, using the slow possum style, and his times were always disappointing. Finally, an instructor pulled him aside and said, "That obstacle course is going to beat you every time unless you start taking some risks." The next week, McRaven pushed his fear aside. He climbed the tower, mounted the rope, and thrust himself headfirst down the slide for life. He finished with a personal best time. Life is a struggle, and the potential for failure is always there. But those who live in fear of failure, or hardship, or embarrassment, will never achieve their potential. Without pushing your limits, without occasionally sliding down the rope head first, you will never know what is truly possible in your life. The motto of the famed British SAS is "Who dares wins." It's a reminder that sometimes, you have to dare greatly. Of course, daring greatly requires courage. And there will be times when your courage is tested not by an obstacle, but by a bully. During a long, 4-mile night swim, the instructors briefed the trainees on all the species of sharks in the water off San Clemente Island, including the great white. They offered a simple piece of advice: if a shark starts to circle you, stand your ground. Don't swim away. Don't act afraid. And if that shark darts toward you, punch it in the snout as hard as you can. Bullies, McRaven says, are all the same. Whether they're on the playground or running a country, they thrive on fear and intimidation. They're like sharks that sense fear in the water. They circle, they probe, and if you show weakness, they strike. If you don't find the courage to stand your ground, they will win. McRaven saw this firsthand when he was in charge of the captured Saddam Hussein. When the new Iraqi government leaders were brought in to see him, Saddam, the butcher of Baghdad, just smirked at them. The leaders yelled at him from a safe distance, but you could see the fear still in their eyes. This man had terrorized them for decades, and even as a prisoner, he managed to intimidate them. McRaven knew he had to break that cycle of fear. He had Saddam isolated. For a month, he visited him every day, and every day, without saying a word, he would motion for the former dictator to sit back down on his cot. The message was clear: you are no longer important. Your power is gone. You can no longer intimidate anyone. Courageous American soldiers had stood up to his tyranny, and he was no longer a threat. In life, To complete your night swim, you'll have to be a person of great courage. That courage is inside all of us. You just have to dig deep and find it. Don't back down from the sharks. There will come moments, however, that test you in a way that has nothing to do with bullies or obstacles. The darkest moments. The moments of profound loss, fear, and uncertainty. The final test of the diving phase in SEAL training was a 2-mile underwater swim across San Diego Bay at night, to plant a practice mine on the keel of a ship. The water was black. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. All you had was a tiny green light on your compass. The instructors warned them, it will be darker under the ship. So dark you can get disoriented. So dark that if you get separated from your buddy, he will never find you. The chief instructor's final words stayed with McRaven for the rest of his life. Tonight, you will have to be your very best. No matter how dark it gets, you must complete the mission. This is what separates you from everyone else. At some point, we will all confront a dark moment. The passing of a loved one, a crushing failure, a moment that leaves you wondering about your future. In those moments, you have a choice. You can crumble, or you can be your very best. McRaven witnessed this time and again at the ramp ceremonies for fallen soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. These were the most solemn moments of the war, when a flag-draped casket was loaded onto an aircraft to begin its final journey home. He saw how families, military units, and an entire nation came together to be their best in those tragic times. He saw a soldier's twin brother stand tall and comfort his family. He saw an entire town turn out to salute a fallen ranger. He saw airmen fly the next day after losing their friends, knowing their fallen brothers would want them to continue the mission. In your darkest moment, reach deep inside yourself and be your very best. But what if you're not just in a dark moment? What if you're in a moment of utter despair, where all hope seems lost? This is where the 9th lesson comes in. It happened during Hell Week, the most brutal part of SEAL training. It was Wednesday night, and the class was in the Tijuana mudflats, a cold, swampy patch of terrain where the thick, sticky mud sucks the life and warmth out of you. They had been there for hours, cold, wet, and miserable, with 3 more days of Hell Week to go. As the wind howled, an instructor spoke through a bullhorn, offering them a deal. He had a warm fire, hot coffee, and chicken soup waiting. They could all get out of the mud. All he needed was for 5 men to quit. Just 5. The temptation was overwhelming. One student started to move toward the instructor. It looked like the class was about to break. And then, a single voice cut through the wind. It was tired and raspy, but it was singing. The tune was familiar, though the lyrics weren't fit for polite company. Then one voice became 2. And 2 became 3. And soon, the entire class was singing. The student who was about to quit turned around and joined in. The instructor threatened them, but they sang louder. With each note, the class grew stronger. The mud seemed a little warmer. The dawn a little closer. They had learned one of the most powerful lessons of all, the power of one person to give hope to the group. If one person could sing when they were up to their neck in mud, then so could everyone else. Hope is the most powerful force in the universe. One person, a Lincoln, a King, a Mandela, a Malala, can change the world by giving people hope. We will all find ourselves neck-deep in mud someday. That is the time to start singing. This brings us to the final, and perhaps most important, lesson. In the center of the SEAL training compound, there is a brass bell. It hangs there for all the students to see. And it represents an easy way out. To quit, all you have to do is ring that bell 3 times. Ring the bell, and you don't have to do the cold swims or the long runs. Ring the bell, and you can avoid all the pain. It's always there, a constant temptation. But the instructor on the first day also gave them a warning. If you quit, he said, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Quitting never makes anything easier. Of all the lessons from SEAL training, this was the most important one for McRaven. Never, ever quit. Life will constantly put you in situations where quitting seems like the easiest, most rational thing to do. He was never more inspired by this principle than when he met a young Army Ranger named Adam Bates in a hospital in Afghanistan. The 19-year-old had stepped on a mine. Both of his legs had been amputated. It was his first combat mission. McRaven stood by his bed, trying to find the words to comfort him, filled with a sense of pity. But Bates, though he couldn't speak, was conscious. He had learned sign language because his mother was deaf. He raised his burned and bandaged hand. Slowly, painfully, he signed 3 words. I will be okay. A year later, McRaven saw Ranger Bates again. He was standing tall on his new prosthetic legs, laughing and challenging his buddies to a pull-up contest. Through all the surgeries, the pain, and the rehabilitation, he never quit. And just as he promised, he was okay. Life is full of difficult times. But someone out there always has it worse than you. If you refuse to give up on your dreams, if you stand tall against the odds, then life will be what you make of it. And you can make it great. Never, ever, ring the bell. Commentary. So, what do we take away from all of this? When you strip it all down, Make Your Bed isn't really a book about the military. It's a book about human potential. It's about the incredible strength that lies dormant inside every single one of us, waiting for the right moment, the right challenge, to be awakened. What I find so powerful about Admiral McRaven's message is its profound simplicity. He's not offering complicated life hacks or secret formulas for success. He's reminding us of the timeless, fundamental virtues that have guided great men and women for centuries: discipline, perseverance, courage, compassion, and hope. He just happens to illustrate them through the intense and unforgettable stories of Navy SEAL training. The central idea that resonates most deeply with me is the connection between small, seemingly insignificant actions and large, life-altering outcomes. We live in a world that often celebrates grand gestures and overnight success. We want the big promotion, the viral video, the lottery win. But McRaven teaches us that true, lasting change begins with the small, unglamorous disciplines that no one else sees. It starts with making your bed. That one act of order and intention sends a message to your brain: I am in control. I am a person who does what they say they will do. I finish what I start. That small victory compounds over time, building a foundation of self-respect and discipline that allows you to tackle much bigger challenges. This book also serves as a powerful antidote to the victim mentality that can be so tempting in modern life. The lesson of the sugar cookie, that life isn't fair, is not meant to be pessimistic. It's meant to be liberating. Once you accept that you will face unfairness, that you will fail for reasons beyond your control, you stop wasting energy complaining about it. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What's next?" You take ownership of your response, even when you can't control the circumstances. That is the definition of mental toughness. So, how can you apply these lessons to your life, starting today? Here are a few simple actions. First, and most obviously, tomorrow morning, make your bed. But don't just do it. Do it with purpose. Make it perfect. Smooth the sheets, center the pillow, and pull the covers tight. Start your day with a task completed and see how it changes the tone of your morning. Second, the next time you fail at something, reframe it. Whether you get a bad grade on a test, mess up at your part-time job, or have a difficult conversation, don't see it as a final judgment. See it as your invitation to the circus. Recognize that the extra effort required to fix your mistake or learn from your failure is the very thing that will make you stronger. Embrace the extra work. Finally, find someone to help you paddle, and then go help someone else. Think of one person in your life you can count on. Reach out to them today and just let them know you appreciate them. Then, look for someone who might be struggling, a friend who seems down, a family member who's overwhelmed, and find one small way to help them. Be the person who paddles a little harder for them. Be the person who starts singing when they're up to their neck in mud. That was a summary of Make Your Bed by Admiral William H. McRaven. We certainly covered the core lessons today, but I have to be honest with you. A summary is like looking at a postcard of the Grand Canyon. It gives you the idea, but it can never replace the feeling of standing on the edge and experiencing it for yourself. The real power of this book is in the quiet moments, when one of McRaven's simple, powerful stories connects with something deep inside you. This summary is your map, but the treasure is found by reading the book. If anything we've discussed today has struck a chord, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely strengthen the way you approach your life every single day. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, I'd be grateful if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the world's most successful minds. Let's keep growing together.